I made a whole video for this episode and there was zero energy in it. So this is my energy. I really liked the episode. This is going to be a video essay. Enjoy. Welcome back, everyone. It's been a long stretch since season 2, which is kind of fitting for this season's theme. It felt like a dry, desolate waste right up until the end when the castings and other tidbits started kind of getting announced and we really got the ball rolling. Then they dialed it up to 11 with the teaser trailers and then an 11-minute cold open, which is kind of crazy. That was 11 minutes long for us to kind of go through. So I'm really looking forward to this season. Just heads up for this video, I'm probably going to kind of just read through a script and kind of podcast style. There won't be a lot of video elements. It'll be mostly just me talking in a structured detail, kind of podcast style. So, yeah, do some dishes, throw this on in your car. Like, feel free to be looking at your phone. You don't really need to be looking at the TV, and we'll just run through this one real quick. So to just give a quick recap to any newcomers on where I stand with the show, Season 1 had me hopeful for the story. The first 3 episodes kind of remain my favorites, with 5 or 6 also being up there. There were definitely other moments of greatness sprinkled within. However, even with the benefit of the doubt for COVID filming issues, I found myself scratching my head a few too many times throughout the late season, as certain narrative choices felt out of place or contradictory to the Watt universe. And I understand that time constraints with episode counts and the usual visual media presents its own difficulties, but there are still a number of things that just kind of didn't pass the sniff test for me. And even if I was watching the show without any of the Wheel of Time branding, let alone this kind of story that's already been proven to be more than capable, it was just good enough as is. I don't know, but I'll just leave it at that. Move on to season 2. Season 2 shared some of the same complaints as season 1, but on a far smaller scale, other than a few plot lines and some screen time choices that I don't think I'll ever accept as necessary. And then they kind of had a few things in episode 8, with the really tight window for the episodes and everything they had to get accomplished. I still thought it was pretty good. They kind of started expanding the world and they had more time to grow some of our characters, specifically Egwene, Nynaeve, and Perrin. They got a ton of character growths. Our villains started to be more fleshed out, and our Emmons Field Two Rivers characters, the Two Rivers 5, finally began to grow more. And then they also expanded on the White Tower's role within the universe. So it was really important to get that groundwork laid out in order for the rest of the seasons to kind of pick up some other characters, some other plot lines, and really start to get into the nitty-gritty that is the Wheel of Time. I'm still not 100% sold on the season 2 finale, but for the most part, I really enjoyed the episode. There was just a few things sprinkled out during the runtime that stuck out so much to me that it just kind of kept taking me out of the viewer experience. But otherwise, happy with it. The world of the Wheel of Time is massive, and to have to get to the end of the Dragon Reborn storyline in 16 episodes is quite a challenge. Was it executed perfectly? In my opinion, no. But I do think it was serviceable from a writing perspective. And to end on a positive note, the costuming, casting, set design, practical effects, especially the Trollocs, and performances from most of the cast have been shining stars on this show since day 1. And based on the teaser material for season 3, it looks like this theme is going to continue throughout the show. Which brings us to our season 3 premiere. I won't cover the cold open too much since I already have a near 30-minute video on that, but what I will say is they came out swinging for the fences and they knocked it out of the park on this one, so congrats on that. The CGI was much better. The weaves during the fight scenes were all over the place. There's tons of stuff going on. They had individual colors. The staff had weaves going around of it. And just, I would like to say that this is a perfect example of changes to the source material that actually make things better. It kind of condenses this, like, the narrative of the tower kind of strife plot line. And then it also adapts it for visual media very well, because it was just off-screen kind of stuff in the books, but to bring it to life, to show the gravity of the situation was huge. There were still a few corny comments kind of during it that took me out of the moment. Unfortunately, a continuing theme from the first two seasons, but overall, it was an amazing start for what I am hoping is a new chapter in this show. A few quick points that I wanted to bring up that are kind of like plot implications that did come out of this cold open. We have Swan being questioned about contacting Moraine after she was banished and letting Rand, the Dragon Reborn, walk free, even though as the head of the tower, she's supposed to be controlling him for the last battle. So how this will play out with the rest of the tower, we'll have to watch and find out. Then we have, although Leandrin was a dark friend, and this kind of continues the first point, her point still stands, and given that the tower is this kind of political machine, it's not just going to go away because Leandrin was a dark friend. Yes, it came from a bad source, but it's still the truth. Like, Swan did that. So I don't think that's over. 3, the objects of the power that were stolen from the vault. Why were they so interested in a specific one? I know show watchers may be interested. I just wanted to point that out. Book people, I'm sure we all know. But let's just, put a little bookmark on that one. 4, the brutality of the show has kind of been cranked up to 10 in this season. We had a woman get cut in half. We have people getting their throats slit, and all sorts of other violence has kind of really been opened up since the Black Aja has been revealed to the world. Before they had to pretend to be bound to the 3 O's, but now that it's fair game, they can use the power to do what they want. So they can, get a little creative, for lack of better words. And one more comment. They do, as they start to make up these scenes, though, they have to be careful because a lot of times when in the books, there's a reason why they don't do a specific thing, or it's not perfect in the books, but a lot of why don't they just do this is actually covered by Robert Jordan. And you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but they have the 2 sisters that are willing to slit the throats of their other sisters in an instant. And yet when Alana is knocked out, they don't just quickly finish her and her warders off. And yeah, I realize story implications, they can't die right now. But my point is, if you're going to write scenes like this, you have to be consistent. In one scene, they're slitting sisters' throats on sight, and another, they're leaving them and 2 warders and a wounded Alana on the street to possibly come after them. And tell me if I'm wrong here, but the 2 of them had Swan shielded, and they had just sliced women's throats, but instead she tries to drop a building on Swan's head. I don't know, the choices there, you could have just taken care of it a lot quicker instead of doing that. So I don't want to dwell on this. I'm going to move on, but those are just kind of things that I hope they watch out for. I will say I tried to get my wife, who did not read the books, to watch this episode after she wasn't really interested in season 2. And it seems like it did a good job of making itself a potential starting point for new viewers. Season 1 and 2's recap was pretty substantial, but I do think it would be possible for someone to catch this cold open, get hooked, and just kind of keep watching from here. Some of the exposition at the beginning of the episode is a bit extensive, but it was far better than some other shows I've seen. They're clearly trying to onboard new watchers and catch others up after this kind of very long break between 2 seasons. Season 3 of Yellow Jackets immediately jumps out to my head when I think of a bad example of exposition at the beginning of a 3rd season. So they did it a lot better than that. I was watching that the other day, and it's very in your face. Unfortunately, one of the biggest complaints my non-readers had from season 1 and 2 was there wasn't enough exposition, though. So there has to be this unfortunate balance. I think this is a unique critique to me, as it doesn't bother most people watching things. But I'm really turned off with clunky, out-of-place exposition that almost kind of seems like it's meant for people that are looking at their phones and just listening to the show, not actually watching it. So overall, though, I thought it was a great onboarding episode, and hopefully it ushers in a new wave of fans that can choose to go back and watch the first 2 seasons after this one. This is exactly how I got into Game of Thrones. I watched season 3 with my freshman year roommates, and then I went back and binged the first 2 seasons in a week. Okay, now let's get into the actual episodes. Sometimes I do these summaries character by character, sometimes I go in order by scene, but for this episode, I think it's going to be a little bit of a mix of both since our characters are interacting with each other a ton. There's kind of one central theme to the entire episode with little tidbits mixed in and out. So I am going to go back and forth and just kind of talk about a few general points that happened during the runtime of this episode. All of our characters are together for once, and we are introduced to the world post-Falm. These once bright and hopeful kids from a farm town are now mixed in with the most political city in the world, with the most evil organization and people hunting them as well. Each character faces this challenge differently, and the episode dives into their fears and motivations throughout the whole thing. But first, the boys go out for a drink. We get this fun scene filled with updating us on how our characters are feeling towards each other, exposition dumping the Aiel plot with Akara Karn, giving Avienda some more depth, and overall establishing this kind of feel-good atmosphere to start the episode off. They also talk about Kalendor and the Stone of Tears role in the world, which, to give a quick recap for any first-time watchers, Kalendor is one of the most powerful sa'angreal in the world. It's held in the Stone of Tyr, basically kind of like Excalibur, and the only person that can draw it is the Dragon Reborn. The Stone of Tyr is a large fortress in the city of Tyr. This is why Moraine wants him to go there. If he retrieves Kalendor, the Stone of Tyr is his, and whoever holds the stone leads over the city and its army. It's safe to say, though, that if Moraine and Lanfear both know about this, so do the other Forsaken. So the idea is to go there, retrieve Kalendor as part of the prophecy, use it as a weapon against the Forsaken and the Dark One, and also to get a new army to continue to bring the world under the dragon's banner, and then eventually fight the army of the Shadow in the last battle. Anyways, I thought they did a really great job capturing the early friendship of Mat, Perrin, and Rand, which, speaking of changes the show made, I would say this is one for the better. In Book 4, the dynamic between them has changed drastically due to Rand becoming the Dragon Reborn. So since they've pumped the brakes on Rand's development, whether you like that or not, we're left with this more wholesome dynamic, which this episode kind of revolves around. I believe in Book 4, by at this point, Mat and Perrin don't want to be around Rand. Nobody wants to be around Rand. So they really ramped up Mat's character in this episode as well. It's almost like the actor or the writers had this kind of come to Jesus moment where everything they were going with the character, like it just seems a lot better. Maybe that's from him healing from the dagger. I don't know, or just, the time and the growth, but he's cracking jokes. He's chatting up every woman he sees. He's speaking in the old tongue. He's playing a little maiden's kiss. And he's even cheesing over his portrait that this artist made of him holding the Horn of Valir. So, if this episode is any indication of things to come in this season, I cannot wait to see more of Mr. Matrim Cawthon. Next part of this Moraine and Lanfear thing, I'm not sure how I feel about it yet. Involves this kind of continuing theme in the greater story of Wheel of Time, which is people scheming to get Rand to do what they want him to do. And they go to extremes to try and achieve this goal. Book Moraine is willing to let certain characters work with Rand that are bad guys. So I am prone to believing that it's not too big of a stretch that she herself could work with Lanfear on some of this. I'm sure some people disagree with this, but she does know that Rand talks to a certain individual in the books. Because she says, she's like, hey, I know you're talking to this dude. Watch out for him. I can't get into any more. That's a huge spoiler if I actually kind of describe it more. But I don't know. But the methods in this episode, I'm not 100% sure I agree with. It's my understanding that based on the interactions after the attack, that no one was supposed to be hurt, at least severely. But Lanfear took it a step too far. Honestly, it took me until my second time watching to really understand what was going on here. So, just in case you guys missed it, basically Moraine and Lanfear teamed up to try and push Rand towards what he needs to do next in order to fill the prophecies and become the Dragon Reborn. So Lanfear stages this attack in the night on Rand and his friends to instill a level of fear and distrust in him that would drive them apart from each other. It also leads to other characters realizing that they themselves have their own paths they must go on. However, the scheme goes wrong when a third party attacked the group at the same time as Lanfear's attack. The man stabbing Nynaeve was a gray man sent by Moghedien. So when Lan and Moiraine are sitting in the room looking stressed, it's because they think they know what's happening. But in reality, it's much worse. Love or hate her methods, it worked, because by the end of the episode, Rand is on the move, and his friends are headed in different corners of the world. And at least Moiraine doesn't get what she wants 100%, because guess what? They're headed to the Aiel Waste and not Tyr. This also gave us a little bit more of the lore to this world of Wheel of Time, because we learned that Moghedien is the only Forsaken that can make the Grey Men. These are Shadow Spawn assassins that can kind of slip undetected to their targets. These guys are extra dangerous because they are entwined kind of with this power in a way that makes it so people will not see them even if it's in a well-lit room. Their eyes, your eyes, almost want to gloss over them just standing in the room, and your mind won't even register that they're there, that you're seeing them, until it's too late. So the scene at the end with the guy that's kind of bound up and being tortured, that's a Dark Friend being turned into a Grey Man. Egwene, Nynaeve, and Elaine have their own character paths to walk. The central conflict of the Tower wanting to control Rand is reintroduced to them by Swan, and Egwene specifically does not take to the idea well. She does this clever little game where she takes the accepted test in order to get the ability to be able to leave the Tower and sidestep this ultimatum that Swan tried to give her. Very clever idea. One thing that jumped out to me is that when she comes out of the arches, she's covered in blood. And I don't 100% know, but is this supposed to be like the Mad Rand's blood from like her killing him? Is it her own from the battle? Did she have to kill him in the test? Like, did she live through that? Or maybe it was from another portion that was kind of off screen. It's just to show that she had a rough time coming through. Let me know your thoughts on that, because I'm up in the air. But Egwene is still struggling with the PTSD from being enslaved and collared by the Sanshan. And her relationship with Rand and her attitude towards much of the world has changed drastically because of it. I'm interested to see how this will impact her motivations going forward. Knowing the Sanshan are out there, it seems like this Egwene is much more adverse towards the Tower, and I'm really curious to see how that plays out. It could honestly make for a very compelling story arc as time goes on, but we will have to wait, watch, and find out. So she does seem to be much more committed to Rand, which I think is a nice touch, but I'm kind of curious how that's going to play into our storyline. In fact, all the characters seem much more committed to Rand at this point, which just makes me feel better as a viewer. I think this is a change, and I do think it's a change for the better, because it really shows how much they care about him. As things go on, we'll have to see what happens and how this relationship develops as Rand becomes the Dragon Reborn. Elaine also gets some screen time in this episode, and I can see they're setting up the royal family to make an entrance, which I can't wait to see. I love this actress, and I like Egwene a lot, and I think they're doing a great job with the character development. I said Egwene, I mean Elaine. Yeah, I like Elaine a lot. I think they're doing a good job with her development. I really like the actress. I like the costuming. She seems like she hits the bill perfectly. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this, which... Speaking of Elaine and Avienda, they're a thing. I know their friendship is very close in the books, but I did really always interpreted it as just like two friends who just became very close and they felt like they were family. That being said, I don't care. I guess if it's a choice they choose to make with certain romances to how they are in the books, then it could fit. It's not a hill I'm willing to die on. I know many say it's obvious that they were a couple in the books, but I never saw it as obvious. People also make the claim that every other male character in this book is like gay coded and shit like that, which maybe, I don't know. But just because they don't behave like finance bros in The Wolf of Wall Street doesn't make them one way or the other. But I mean, Elaine and Avienda are probably the closest call of all of them. So I'm, like I said, not a hill I'm going to die on. And honestly, it kind of makes sense, so let's send it. What I just hope they don't do is, like, to develop this relationship, which isn't crazy important, they give it a lot of screen time, and it's kind of like, you know, warders peeing on trees and stuff in season 2, or some of the Land and Moraine stuff that I was just like, do we need this right now when we only have 8 episodes? But either way, I really like both those actresses. I'll just leave it at that because, yeah, I'm down. Anyways, I just realized I didn't give Perrin any love in this, but I'm interested to see where his character goes. He brought this warm feeling to my heart when he's sitting there talking to Rand, and I noticed that like his wedding ring was broken in the attack, and I'm curious to see how his story arc develops as he heads back to the Two Rivers and we get deeper into our book 4 storyline. Adding this back in towards the end, I am a number 1 Lanfear simp. I will say that is all I will say at this time. When she walks into the city and she kind of does that where she like teleports up top and is all spooky, very nice. I am pro Lanfear changes in the show. But alas, I've gone on long enough. I personally really enjoyed this episode. I thought they got back to the story well. I think they are setting up this season's story arc in a reasonable way. They've done enough world building in seasons 1 and 2 that it doesn't feel as forceful in this episode. It's definitely noticeable when they are kind of force feeding us a lot of information, but it's not bad. It's like being force fed ice cream on a hot summer day. So our character motivations are shown to the viewer, and they actually make sense. We have some personality for every character, some relationships are beginning to blossom and take root, and overall, vibes are up. Stocks for vibes are up. With me hitting upload on this video, I can finally go watch episode 2. So I will end it here and I will dive into that. I'm really looking forward to it because obviously things have been spoiled. I've been on Twitter, so I kind of know what's going to happen in the next 2 episodes, at least characters that are going to show up. So with that being said, I will catch you guys in a couple days once I've watched, written, and uploaded season 2 or episode 2. But with that being said, that's my chat for season 3, episode 1 of The Wheel of Time.